This is Invisible Inc., the podcast for under-resourced women entrepreneurs. And I'm your host, Shubha Chakravarti, founder of Achieve. Join me as I talk to women entrepreneurs about the nuts and bolts of their journeys and to experts who will give you insights that are hard to find anywhere else. Let's jump in. What's the one lever women overlook in almost any negotiating situation? What's more important in a critical negotiation? Is it looking for fairness or looking out for your best interests? And why does even a top-notch attorney work with another attorney when engaging in a negotiation on her own behalf? In this episode, Jennifer Justice, entrepreneur and women's advocate extraordinaire, talks about what it means to claim your space, how to use relationship building for long-term wins, the importance of having an objective champion, and much more. Now, here's Jennifer. Good afternoon, Jennifer. We're super excited to have you on Invisible Inc. today. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So you've had a pretty amazing journey. I'm not going to ask you what you did, but I am going to ask you what's been the single brightest moment that you can recall of working with women across your entire career and why that was so special.
I can't point to one, but what always makes me so happy that I did this and started this is when I help a woman understand her worth and value, and that translates into real money for her. So she no longer has to worry about things that she never should have had to worry about given her level of experience, etc. And that's enlightening women of their power and their worth is always makes me really happy.
I love it. And is there a typical moment in that journey from when you first start working with a woman where you've seen the most aha moments happen in terms of realizing their own worth?
It's usually when I have that initial call with them and I can see that there's a fear and an insecurity and fear of the unknown and not really knowing what the next step should be. And I basically go like, well, this is what I do. I don't do what you do. That's why I would hire somebody like you to do it. This is what I do. I can help you in these ways. I can protect you from a legal standpoint. I can protect you from a business development standpoint. I can negotiate deals for you that will make your life better and easier and your company's better and easier and more valuable. And you don't have to worry about it. And they have this like sigh of relief going, okay, I didn't know that there's somebody out there that could do that for you. And now I feel better about not knowing what I don't know, which you don't need to know everything.
Well said. So, you're all about negotiating as a lawyer. Across your experience, what are the top 3 challenges that you see women facing that prevents them from getting the best outcomes that they could?
I think a lot of it is trying to negotiate for yourself. It's not something you can just learn overnight. Like, even if I give you tips, it's not easy. It's almost like acting. It's like, I know how to have a poker face and I know when to get off a call and I know when to add a line that makes somebody like happy or feel like it's not so contentious, or I can tell when there's deal fatigue and it's their last offer. And so it's really difficult. Usually what I say is if you can hire somebody to negotiate for you, then do that. Even lawyers, I hire somebody to negotiate for me. So one of the hurdles is like we're our own worst enemy when it comes to that. It's like really hard. Like I can go, it's bad for anybody, but negotiating for myself, I have issues with.
That's very encouraging to hear. So it's not just me. It's not just all the women.
It's everybody. Everybody is like that, male and female, but mostly females who've been told forever they're not worth their value. If you are in a situation where you have to negotiate for yourself, one of the biggest red flags to me is, just tell me what you want. I'm like, I'm not the one reaching out here for a job. You reached out to me. I'm like in a great situation, or you're the one interviewing. Like, you tell me what you're going to do to make it worth my while. And you don't have to react. You can be like, okay, great. Is that everything? And your salary is not everything. It's also how long you're going to be there. What's your title? Who you're reporting to? What are your responsibilities? Where are you working in the world? Are you working at your house? Are you working, what's your vacation? Is there equity? If you get fired and you didn't do anything wrong, how much are they going to pay you? If you left a stock situation to get in another situation, what happens to that if you get fired? There's a lot of other variables. And it's asking them to put everything in writing, put it down. You'll look at everything in a whole. And even say, like, what about the salary? Does that sound good? It's like, I don't know. All these other things matter too. So the salary could look great if other factors are as great too. So send it to me in an email. I'll get back to you. And then that allows you to respond in an email in a way that you probably or may not do in person as powerfully.
That's a great point, because you are claiming space for yourself that you don't almost feel like you're able to claim. And step one feels like first claim your space and then choose a space and time in which you'll respond. That's lovely. And then in terms of women of color or diverse women, however you want to interpret that phrase, have you seen additional challenges or just a magnification of the same issues? Is there anything else you'd add to the conversation?
Well, definitely, it's a magnification. I think we all know the data, but I'm not going to pretend to step in the shoes of somebody who it's very well documented has been repressed in a way that's beyond comparison to me. And I still am not equal as a white woman. So I don't even want to try to answer that question from that perspective. I just see it happen across the board to women. I see all the pay disparity. Let's put it that way. I see all those numbers in real life and how that plays out.
Got it. Yeah, a lot of this is around conditioning, and I certainly share the same fear that you talked about in terms of negotiating. Which of these are more easily addressable versus which of them are more deep-rooted in terms of somebody who's preparing to become a better negotiator?
I think it's 50-50, right? It's like it's steeped in the patriarchy, loving the fact that it was ruled by one particular group of basically mostly white men and not really valuing women, seeing what their job is to really just service them, whether that's at work or at home. We are also served every day, all day long, ads that go by buses and in TV and on sidewalk, bus station, on the top of taxis, on every flyer in every store that's completely unattainable as a woman, and depending on what age they are, that's just not attainable. And so your own security wanes very quickly as a woman. And in fact, the height of a girl's security is 8 years old. And once they hit puberty, it just plummets. So it's in us, right? It's like we come about it honestly as well. And then you have the patriarchy just agreeing with everything that we're feeling about ourselves,
Yeah, so it clearly makes it obvious that there's work to be done and you just have to roll up your sleeves and get to it. So kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of negotiating, right? There are tons of different books. We can argue about the fact that techniques that are written for white men don't necessarily not only not work, but might actually backfire if you're using them as, for example, a brown or a black woman. To begin with, how much of negotiating do you, as a professional lawyer, view about being fair versus about getting the best outcome for yourself?
Well, they can be both. The best outcome for yourself can be the fairest version too. Sometimes when you get too much, it's going to get taken away too fast. And I've done those kinds of deals before when I had a lot of leverage and I've taken everything and then turnabout's fair play. Somebody comes and does the exact same thing, The best kind of deal is where both parties win. They don't get everything they want, but they both get something they want.
And when you marry that with your innate sense of not taking too much space, your sense of fairness may be distorted versus what an objective third person might say is fair. For example, if you're negotiating a contract or fundraising terms, for example, how do you as a woman start to develop a more healthy sense of fairness and therefore start to advocate for better outcomes for yourself, especially when money and economics are involved?
Like I said, if you can't surround yourself with a team that's going to do it so you can do your job all day long, you don't have to worry about those details. I always just put myself in a position of who am I really negotiating for? Is it for me? No, it's actually for my 9-year-old twins. You know what I mean? Because everything I'm doing is taking away time from them. And if somebody's disrespecting me, they're disrespecting them. And so what is the fairness? What would I want if I was representing them? So it's like that fictitious client or that fictitious person that you become to be able to look at a bird's eye view and see what exactly fairness means from there.
Got it. And then in terms of, and I completely understand and respect the fact that you do need to have real good professionals advocating for you, folks such as yourself. As a woman, though, who is also needing to do this kind of negotiation in other business environments, do you have an example in mind of someone who did an outstanding job of this, not being a lawyer, and what methods or approach or techniques she may have used to kind of overcome this fear or reluctance to advocate for herself?
That's usually people who, if you're not going to hire the professionals, you surround yourself with a bunch of other people that your network, your kind of tribe that will help you understand what is standard across the board. And that includes men who love to share information. And if you're not getting the same as them, why wouldn't you? And so to really do all of your research and find that this is what's standard in the business, so you can say this is what's standard. And I think I have a lot of clients who kind of do that. And they also go with their gut instinct.
And to the extent that you don't have the access to the network, a lot of this information in terms of what market is or what standard terms are tend to be embedded in people's minds or inside networks where typically it's hard to break in. What advice do you have, or what have you seen work where you don't know the people and it's not out there like in salary.com for you to figure out that XYZ got paid so much, for example? In a fundraising situation, it's a lot more private transaction information. What would you recommend in those cases? Because research is obviously a cornerstone of everything you're doing. So what would you recommend that women do in those situations to do that research and get that access to that information?
Yeah, I mean, you do have a lot more available because of the research, and they also have a lot more available because of the laws, where it's now in New York, they have to actually put salary bands if you're talking about a traditional job as an employee or an executive, and they can't ask you what you want, that what you made before. If you're not accessing these groups of people, I mean, there's a lot of female organizations that you can join for not a lot of money where you can ask these questions as well. A lot of it, you have to rely on your instinct. And otherwise, what else is there? And the other thing is, like I said before, is ask what they are going to offer you. And if it doesn't work or doesn't feel right, and you're kind of in a jam and you need to take the job, you can always take it and know that that's not where you're going to stay with your eyes open. Ask all the questions. That's important.
Yeah, especially to the point that you made earlier in terms of all the variables or the negotiating chips. I think one of the challenges I've seen, certainly with myself, is I don't realize that there's more than one chip. One of the pieces of advice I got early on was to improve your negotiating outcomes, you always want to increase the number of chips that you're going to play with. So create factors that then become negotiating variables. Is that something that you would agree with? Or?
Oh, yeah. You always ask for 10 things knowing that you want one or two. And sometimes they'll give you the other stuff like it's no big deal. And then it narrows it down. It's a chess game.
Just create a lot of the pieces yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. So then coming down to this question of you're having a conversation, you're having a transactional exchange with your counterparty, whoever you're negotiating with. How do you as a lawyer think about establishing trust, knowing that everybody knows that each person is kind of out there to maximize their own interest? What do you see working best to establish trust?
Well, I want them to stay a client. I don't do one-off deals. I'm not a litigator where somebody comes and then I do the deal and they're gone and they probably don't need me ever again. I usually do deals over and over and over for people. So it's a mutual trust. They need to know that I'm going to represent their interests as much as possible. And I need to know that they're going to reward me for that and respect my fees, et cetera. So my reputation also speaks for itself. And that's something that I take great pride in. I've done this for a long time. I have a great reputation of being very, very strict and not backing down, but also for the right reasons. You can tell there's certain people are brand new and they've never done this before, and you have to have longer conversations. And some people, you don't fully gain their trust regardless. There's nothing I can do about that. That's something within them. It's mostly because if they never looked out for themselves in the first place and then finally are doing that, they want to get to the point where they should have been in the first place, but you can't get there. And sometimes you have to take responsibility for your lack of action in representing yourself. That's part of it too.
So give me an example of what that might look like in an entrepreneur's life, where they haven't stood up for themselves.
They started their company, they have a co-founder, they don't do a deal with each other or an operating agreement, or just did a form and didn't really think about things like getting married and divorced and what that means for it. Or they both are in marketing, and so who's talking to the lawyers and accountants, you know what I mean? And then they don't do that, and then they want to get out of it and they want everything, and one decides, yeah, I'm going to leave, it's fine, you can take the company, but they never negotiated for themselves in a way, or did the actual work or paid the actual money to get real professional advice on what that means. Another situation is, somebody who takes a job vice president or above, and they just kind of say, oh, I can negotiate the deal by myself. And they sign this employment agreement. And then they come to me when they get fired without cause, and they're telling them they only get a month. And they're like, wait a minute, I left this job. I'm like, okay, but I can't get you back to what should have been because you did not hire somebody. And what you also have to ask yourself about that situation is, so why is that company treating you like this? They're treating you like this because they know that you don't have enough respect for yourself, that you didn't hire a professional to negotiate your deal. That's how they're going to treat you. And they're hiring you to protect the company. So if you can't protect yourself, how are they going to protect the company? It speaks volumes when you are in a high level position or a founder and you don't hire the right people to negotiate because you're not taking it seriously. So why would they take you seriously? They might believe in it. They might put money. They might hire you, but they're going to treat you when things go down how you've treated yourself, actually.
I love that view. I never thought about it quite like that. And you've shown a new light on it. So I want to ask a couple more questions generally on negotiating and just jump in pretty quickly into the fundraising side. And I'm talking about you negotiating as a lawyer on behalf of the woman with an investor or some other third party. So a lot of the time you get these dark hat techniques or bullying or anything where pressure is exerted on you to force you to accept some terms. How do you deal with those dark hat techniques or bullying?
I try to point out that serves nobody, especially in times of social media. Those things are usually happening when you're trying to get rid of somebody, or they're not usually happening when you're going into a deal where everybody wants to be happy. Because if that were the case, then what kind of partnership are you going to have after you sign the deal? And to me, I've actually had that happen when somebody was trying to do, a client of mine was trying to do a deal, and I was so disrespected. I said, look, you guys, I don't like, it's up to you. I can finish this deal. They can abuse me, whatever, but it's a big red flag when somebody acts like this, and then you're going to have to work with them. And one time somebody got into the deal regardless, and it went horribly, horribly bad because it was exactly as I had predicted. The other time they said, yeah, you know what? You protected us so many times. There's no way we're going to do a deal with this person if they think it's okay to talk to you like that.
Okay. So it's almost telling me that the deal happens before the deal and everything kind of starts from the beginning, and all of that is input and information.
You're like dating somebody. There's red flags if you want to see them or not is the question. So many people are just like desperate to get a deal done because they think it's going to be really great, or they've always wanted to do a deal with this person, or it's a lot of money. But there are deals that are just too bad to do, that have a lot of money attached to them, but you will sell the soul of your company or yourself and turn those down. And there's going to be another one around the corner. You have to operate out of a place of abundance, not scarcity.
And what does that mean to operate out of a place of abundance in practical terms?
Know that something else that we trust your instinct, know that a better deal is going to come along with a better company. And I'm talking more from like a founder and like doing a partnership deal or something like that. Not necessarily, look, I really need a job. I have to feed my kids. I have to pay my rent.
I want to talk a little bit about what you talked about in terms of don't do a deal that you have to sell your soul or feel so bad about. That said, there are certain instances where there's a gray area where it's not perfect, but it's not so bad. What is the word they say? Too good to leave and too bad to stay? Yeah. Are there deals, especially for fundraising?
Deals, in particular, people who give money. And at that point, it's a learning lesson in managing. But the more success you have, the more leverage you have over these people. And look, if you're doing really, really well, you could potentially find somebody to buy them out. So they're not in your face all the time. If you're not doing very well, then maybe they have a point, and maybe you shouldn't be the person running the company. You can still be the founder. You can still be a visionary, but you don't have to be the person running the company.
So it's all about getting information. It's all about generating options, and it's all about constantly reevaluating where you are and where that leaves you in terms of next steps. It's kind of what I'm hearing from everything that you're saying so far. One last question, and then we'll jump into fundraising. To what extent does style even matter in a negotiation like this? Is that even on your radar in terms of, do you flex your style? I read a bunch of different things on either side of that question.
I'm pretty straightforward. I don't give it all away, but it's personality. It was something I didn't know I had, and it came naturally to me. And it's not for everybody, but I have a lot of clients that, because they're women and community driven and want to get along, or be like, you got to be nice. I'm like, okay, don't tell me how to do my job. There's not ego here. I will literally get you the best deal you could possibly get, but let me do my job. And there's no such thing as being nice in a negotiation. There's Harvard Business Review documents on it. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to be mean, but you don't have to be nice. Nice is a different word in negotiation. Nice is a pushover.
So what's the word that you would describe instead of nice? What should you be?
Being nice means like offering up way too much. You're not rude. You're not disrespectful, but like nice. Like nice doesn't belong in negotiations.
Love it. That's going to be my takeaway. Nice doesn't belong in a negotiation. Love it. Okay. So getting down to fundraising, can you just give a high level for those of us who are not as familiar from a lawyer standpoint? What does that cadence of the process look like? And at what point should a founder be thinking about engaging a lawyer to help her move along?
First of all, you have to figure out what kind of business are you? If you're a services business, you shouldn't be raising money. You should be able to provide your services and make money. You really only need to raise money if you have a big capital need to actually get like things off the ground, like product or research or those kinds of things. That some kind of product company that needs a bunch of money to do all the packaging and the products, et cetera, or some kind of technology company that needs a bunch of engineers to build a product, those kinds of things. That's when you want to start raising money, but you want to make sure you have an MVP, a minimum viable product, something that actually works, and you should try to bootstrap as much as you can so you know that value.
When a founder comes to you and says, hey, I need your help with raising money, and I know you do investment strategy as well from your firm, what is the process that you typically walk them through so that they understand that they're in this for the right reasons, and should they even be raising capital? So walk us through what that process looks like when you first start talking to a client.
Yeah, I mean, we first start off like the mission and the vision of the company, why it's there. I usually start working with people like after they've released something, they've kind of bootstrapped or raised a little bit of friends and family money or something like that. And they know that there's a product, but they just need another set of hands, eyes, ears, etc., a pop-up executive team that can help them fast track that growth. Sometimes it's building the deck that says what the true story is, right? Oftentimes they go too high a vision and sometimes they don't think big enough, all those things. And then it's like helping them find the right people to do the business model and the financials. And then it is, okay, great, you've done that. Now you need money. Okay, how much money and from whom and how far is that going to get you? And then other ones who are kind of already through that process and have raised a bit of money, but like need kind of access, network, etc. I like help them find those people to hyper grow their company, whether or not that's brands to upload on a platform or partners in music or entertainment to help subsidize what they're doing online, something like that. Or another way is making sure that you have enough of your customers on the cap table, basically. So female founded companies should have women on the cap table. They should raise from women. And we are our own best advocates. We are 80% of the purchasing power. If we have skin in the game, we're going to purchase our own products and we're going to make sure that all of our friends are doing it as well.
And have you seen common challenges with women raising money from other women? And there's a lot of talk around including more women in the investment community, angel investment community, and so forth. So what are your thoughts in terms of what works successfully and what's less successful to help women get to that point?
When I'm talking about women on the cap table, I'm usually talking about individuals that come in under an SPV, special purpose vehicle, or raise individual money. Because look, it's when you're a female founded VC, you're just a female VC, like all eyes are on you. And you're being hyper judged just like the person who's asking you for money. And I hear a lot of women going, oh, women won't give me money. Well, think about it. Like they want to keep their job too, right? And so they need some real wins. And unfortunately, the real wins have been from men. And so they kind of need to put some of that in their pocket. They have to be 150% sure, where men are like 50% and like they gamble it all the time. And they're going to be scrutinized if they lose money and they take the wrong bets. So they can't just say, hey, it's a female founder, I'm going to put money in it because it's a female founder. I wish that was the case. And honestly, when I started the Justice Department, I really thought that was the case. And then I started getting into like why more women aren't investing in women. And I'm like, oh, right, they are having the same issues that everybody is having, and that you're being hyper scrutinized just for being a woman in general, regardless if you have a big job and raising money from big LPs, or if you're a startup and, you know, you're broke and you're trying to raise money, but you have a great idea.
How has that influenced how you guide or steward women founders through this fundraising process? Do you also guide them towards which firms they should go to or which sources of capital that they?
Yeah, I mean, I help them identify certain people, but I also make sure that if they are raising money, raise the most you possibly can so you don't have to go back again. Or like, can you wait to raise some money? Can you launch some stuff? And then it just becomes inevitable that they have to put it in, because if they don't, they're going to lose out. You never really want to be in a position where you're like, okay, I feel desperate again, back from that scarcity versus abundance kind of situation. And so you want to make sure that you're like in a driver's seat and you're not desperate for the money.
So if I'm a woman founder, I'm going to negotiate a deal. What are the 4 or 5 things that I absolutely need to be watchful about? What should I know and decide as a founder myself that a lawyer cannot decide for me? And then how can I then best prepare myself so that you can be in a position to help me in the best way possible?
One is, do you like this person who's investing in your company? Because they're now technically your partner. Do your research about them, find other people and portfolio companies of theirs and talk to them and see how much they're involved, not involved, etc. Like women, we need all the help we can get. Are they strategic? Can they help us? Do they have knowledge and institutional knowledge that we don't have, or a network of people we can get to very quickly, or introductions to people that will make our life easier and take a lot less time? Figuring out how much of the company and your valuation and not really moving from that. How much do you want to own of the company? What does that mean when somebody invests in your company? What kind of rights do they have? And in what kind of time frame do they want that money back? Like 5 years is a short period of time, but venture is more like a 7 to 10. It can be. So you never know.
Going into such either this or any negotiation, one thing that you're always wondering about is, did I do as well as I could have? Did I get the best outcomes? How do you recommend that we measure the outcome of a negotiation? Like, what metrics do you use? And what metrics do you recommend that somebody uses to measure how well they did on a negotiation?
I'm sure there's some kind of like financial metrics that I can't speak to, but did you get what you wanted? You still can control the company, and you can raise more money and still control the company. That's what you want to know. And just move forward. You can't get caught up on that stuff. You got to move forward. You take that money, use it to your advantage, build the company, and you can't sit there and go, oh, I could have done better. That never serves anybody, just a source of anxiety.
So to that point, it sounds like you are better served having a list, like a wish list or a Christmas shopping list, going in to say back to our negotiating chips that says, here's all the 10 things that I think I want. And do you recommend then having them say, this is my best case, this is my, okay, I'll be fine with it, and this is my absolute no way, and how would I say yes?
There's no such thing, really. I mean, you can't even put all the worst case scenarios, because how are you going to know? Worst case scenario could be they take more than 50% of the company. It could be that they're not giving all the money. It could be that they're horrible people and, they just got Me Too'd. And there's a lot of them. It's just that you got to trust your instinct a lot. I think that you go for the things that you want, and then you kind of know what you don't want to. You know what I mean? So process of elimination, you kind of like figure out like who would be good and who would not be good.
Got it. So talking about the process of elimination, one thing that's obviously very clear is you need good professionals like yourself, lawyers especially. It would be great to have you for everybody, but that's not possible. There's only one of you and a lot of us. So if you're out in the market looking to hire a good lawyer for your startup, especially if you're a woman or a diverse woman, what's the process that you would recommend, and how do you make sure as a founder that you have the right legal representation for you?
Yeah, it's a tough one, because it's like me hiring an engineer. I don't know if they're good or not. I would look to who else they've done work with. Like being a lawyer, it's like the one thing that age is a good thing. It's like the more you've seen, the more and you find other companies and you figure out who represented them, get their advice. Were they good? And then you talk to like 3 or 4 people. You see their pricing, you see other clients that they had. Because you can't think of an attorney as just like somebody who's going to look at the paperwork and you're going to pay them and how much they cost. There are people who are specialists in particular areas that can actually hook you up with a VC, or one of their clients could buy you. Like, you might want to pay more to get better quality. You get what you pay for when it comes to legal. There's way, way too high, And there's things that you don't need. Like you don't need, usually if you're a normal startup, you don't need something like a Gunderson or a Cooley. You don't need that. Like they're too big, they're too expensive. But if you are in beverage or food products or consumer product, there's definitely some lawyers who are great connectors. And if you can get them to take you on, because not everybody will, then you have an advantage in the fact that they might be able to find the right people to put money into your company or buy your company. You cannot discount that. That's like the invisible cost, but it's like it can pay off in spades times, so much.
What's fascinating to me is that there's good invisible cost and bad invisible cost and just plain bad cost. So one of the things I'm hearing you say is you need to have a good sense as a potential client of what they're bringing to the table and whether it's good value for what you're paying them, not just an absolute number that says the check I'm going to write is going to be for X dollars. And one theme I heard was certainly industry expertise, because then it could translate into multiple benefits. For example, like you said, a potential buyer and so forth. On the flip side, let's say you're evaluating me as a founder. What do you look at and what would make myself a better client for the right kind of lawyer that I want to engage as a founder?
Yeah. One is just a willingness to pay, because that's always like such a source of pain point, But also this company is not just like a little side project, whatever. This is really going to be something that you put 100% of everything into, and that you're going to be a real partner with them.
Got it. And other than willingness to pay, what are the red flags that would cause you to say, even if somebody's able to afford you and able to pay you, what would make you say no to a founder?
Availability and taking it seriously and being able to jump on a call, because I know, I've had founders who are clearly from a creative background and kind of avoid the legal. And I'm like, this isn't going to work. The legal and the business and the accounting and the finance, like that is the actual structure that holds the building up. The rest of it's window dressing. If you don't have that, nobody's going to invest in you. Otherwise, they're investing in like an influencer. It's just an idea. There's just no strength to it. So you have to have all those pieces in place. So people have to make time for it.
Rule number one. Anything else in terms of either personality, character that would be a red flag to you that says, don't deal with this person?
It's so personal, right? It's like an instinct thing.
Great. Do you have resources, books, podcasts, other than your own great podcast, in terms of folks who want to get better at negotiating or just get smarter about advocating for themselves?
My podcast is Taking Care of Lady Business, which, like you, has a lot of really amazing women on to like give their advice, what they've done right, what they have not done right. Another avenue is The North, which you can hire like time with me, a half an hour to give advice where you couldn't like just give me a retainer or hire me full time or hire, those kinds of things. My company is not just a law firm. It's also, we're mostly actually a business development, business strategy company, helping female founders grow their company that way. There are other ones of us having advisory board. I sit on a lot of advisory boards too and help them, and available like an hour or so every couple of weeks or a couple of hours, or, when they need me to look over something to get a second opinion, etc. It's a great resource. The books, I haven't really read a lot of negotiating 101 books that are that different from each other, like they kind of all say the same thing. If you're going to get one from a woman, not a man, because it just doesn't apply. I haven't had to read any of those in a long time. So I'm not really up on the tips of those,
Yeah, there's you echoed a lot of the ones that I read in the ones by the women. So Linda Babcock and a few others.
Yeah. And then you should like join these women's groups like Female Founder Collective. There's a lot of resources there, and you get access to other people who do different things in the organization. If you're a mom, you can join Hey Mama, who's a lot of women like working as well. And if you join, when asked who referred you, you can put my name.
I will.
So you can reach out to a whole group of thousands of women. Like, has anybody been through this? Does anybody have somebody who does XYZ? All that kind of stuff.
Excellent. So if you had to summarize, boil everything down to 5 things that a woman can do as a founder to get good negotiating outcomes starting tomorrow morning, what would those 5 things be?
First, think bigger with a bigger vision. Always ask yourself if you could get more. Always ask for 30% more than you think that you need. People also don't want to write small checks. They want to write bigger checks because they want bigger returns. So don't think that you're saving anybody money or going to do better because you're asking for a smaller amount. That actually is a sign that you're not thinking big enough. When you can, make sure you have the proper team around you, because investors are going to look for those people that you've put in place that are subject matter experts to do that. They don't want you being the jack of all trades. They want you running the company. You had the vision, run the company. Pay yourself.
Real money?
You got to pay yourself and understand where you sit in there and control as much equity as you possibly can.
Okay. Anything else that pops into mind?
Make sure, that you're interviewing the people that are investing, right? You're interviewing them too. Why are they so lucky to invest in your company?
Got it. This is great. Is there anything that you wish I'd asked you, but I didn't?
I mean, we covered a lot. I was just talking so quickly. I don't even know. I think we got a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot to process right there.
As you said, you've covered a lot. Certainly to me, it was very informative, and I know it's going to be for others as well. So I want to thank you for your time and wish you all the best. So thank you, Jennifer, for an amazing conversation.
Thank you.
So how do you make the most of it when you have the chance to chat with an expert who's at the top of her game? I was listening for the non-obvious nuances throughout this very interesting chat, and here's what I came away with. The biggest was this: you cannot negotiate for something if you don't really believe in it. This keeps coming up over and over in my conversations, both with entrepreneurs and the expert lawyers. We have to keep digging to find that mother lode of worth, whether it's us as individuals or the cause we're working so hard to serve through our ventures. Then there was also this nugget. No matter how many books you read, it takes a pro to execute the strategies and tactics with finesse. Knowing how far you can push, how much to give, what to give, all these require years of experience. So it really is a non-negotiable to get great lawyers for your startup, especially when money is involved. Don't scrimp on this. Last and probably the hardest for many of us is training yourself to ask for more and to be totally okay with it. Jennifer says, just ask for 30% more than what you think you need. When you stop to think about it, her logic makes total sense, but it also feels so against the grain. So, there's a lot to chew on and incorporate from Jennifer's many nuanced insights. What was your big takeaway? And what are you going to do differently tomorrow morning? Thanks for listening to today's episode. We have show notes and more at achieve.co. That's achieve.co/podcast. Like what you heard? Hit subscribe and share with a friend. See you on the next episode. Now, go be an achiever.